Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Tommy Gilmore with Noisy Bird Digital Marketing, and you are watching another episode of Wingin It. If this is your first time here, every week I talk with a different business owner about the business side of business, and the goal being helping you feel like you're winging it a little bit less. Super excited today. We've got Tyler Ely here today. He's going to be telling us a little bit more about not only roofing, because he's been in roofing since 2007. He's got his hands in a ton of different things. We're going to talk about contracting. We're going to talk about relationships. We might even talk about racing cars because he does all of that and more. Tyler, thanks so much for being here with me today. I'm really excited to talk.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you started with Prestige Roofing and Exteriors. This was about 20 years ago in 2007. You guys are doing about $4 million, 11 full-time employees plus contractors. You and your wife, Kate, run the Love Alive podcast where you talk about your relationship. You own Utah Sheet Metal, you own another roofing company, and you do men's coaching, plus racing cars on the side as a hobby. So, super impressive resume. We've got a lot to talk about. So tell people kind of about how you got started with starting your own business. Why did you do it? And why isn't one enough?
All right. Well, so my dad owned a roofing company in Portland, Oregon for about 35 years. Ever since I could carry around a bundle of shingles, I was helping him out in the yard to organize things, and I got to know the industry at that very basic level. As soon as I would do that in the summers for him since I was about 15. Um, I graduated high school, became a salesman for him, served an LDS mission. That was all in Oregon. When I got back, I moved to Utah and got a job at another roofing company for about a year and then just decided to start my own. Um, Started super small and just over the last almost 20 years, just have grown it super organically, have done very, very little marketing. And our niche is kind of property management. Um, Companies. And so most of our clients are people who call us over and over and over again. Every time there's a storm, we go repair all of their buildings. And then when it comes time to re-roof their buildings, they trust us enough to say, hey, let's get this done. We know you're fair. Take care of our roof.
That's awesome. So you've kind of found this niche within the property management sphere. You've built it, you grew it, and then about 4 years ago, was that the next venture? Was starting the podcast with your wife, or did you have others in between then?
There have been a lot. There have been a lot of others. I had a handful of businesses in the firearms industry as well. From about 2012 to about to about earlier this year, I kind of sold off the last one because roofing's gotten so busy. But I had a gun holster company, then I had a company making hardware for gun holsters, and then a company doing events in the firearms industry, and a handful of like really little things mixed in there. Um, and decided to just kind of focus on roofing because it does well. We just started actually our podcast this year. I started men's coaching this year. Utah Sheet Metal was a company that I bought and then expanded last year. Metal Roofscapes of Utah is something I started as well at the end of last year to serve kind of a different clientele in the roofing industry here in Utah.
That's awesome. You mentioned that that's more of a high-end roof, right? So on the prestige side, you guys are focused on property management and things like that. And then with this newer venture, you guys are focused on high-end clients, kind of the high-end materials, the metal roofs and things like that.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll tell you my thought process behind metal roofscapes really because prestige can do all of the things and we do all of the things, but to advertise as a roofer is very expensive because there are a lot of roofing companies and so every click is really expensive. So the main reason I would say I started metal roofscapes is because now that I have a sheet metal company and I fabricate roof packages myself, I can it just takes out the middleman so that I can be more in charge of the quality and the timeliness and the service that I can give people in the metal roofing side of things. And so I started Metal Roofscapes as a way to be able to advertise specifically for to clients who want metal roofs, and those clicks will cost me a lot less because I'm only going to market to people who want metal roofs. Oftentimes, those people also have parts of their project that have different materials. We're bidding a lot of natural slate and cedar shakes. We do a lot of copper. We did a pure zinc roof just recently, which was kind of fun because that's really rare. Um, I started this to specifically market to metal roofing clientele, so that my marketing would be less expensive because you know, I'm not going to be advertising for your standard homeowner with this company.
Yeah. No, it makes sense, and I wanted to get strategic with it, so I'm glad that you wanted to go there because the question would be, okay, why do we have 2 separate roof companies instead of 1, right? If you're kind of looking at it outside in, okay, you have this very successful brand already, and you're geared towards this one thing, so why do we have a completely different company, different entity? And I think what the answer is, what I'm hearing is to be able to differentiate our niches, right? So on the one side, it's we just do property management. This is exactly what we do.
Hmm.
Everything, our website, our marketing, it's all geared towards if you're a property manager, you need to use us for X, Y, and Z reasons. And then on the other side, it's the same thing, but for, high-end materials, high-end metals, things like that. And again, it's not just, hey, we will tackle whatever your project needs. And obviously you will, but the marketing really is, hey, we specialize in these things. And because of that, you have the 2 separate entities.
There's two sides of it, actually. That's one side. And the other side, I would say, is that I get a call every week from somebody saying, "Hey, we buy roofing companies. Tell me about your company." And usually I'm say not interested. Every once in a while, somebody's 10-second pitch will catch my attention. And I say, "Okay, well, tell me what you're doing." And then I'll tell them about Prestige. And every time they say, "Oh, you know what? That's great what you're doing, but that's not the business model that we're looking to purchase." Because with Prestige, we're babysitting our clients and making sure every little thing that they need is taken care of. And it relies a lot on customer service, which, I mean, really any company does. Well, let me put it this way. What they're looking for is a roofing company that buys leads and sells the leads and makes a profit from the leads. Something that's scalable, right? With Prestige, the way that I would scale my niche is just by going to new property management companies and saying, "Hey, this is what we do. Here's a whole bunch of references. If you want us to take care of your stuff, we can as well," which we usually don't because we get enough referred to us on a pretty regular basis to keep our clientele going pretty well. So Metal Roofscapes is going to be a company where we are advertising, essentially buying leads, selling those leads. And once we get that formula down, it's something that we can scale, which is something that these venture capitalist groups are looking for as a company to purchase. And so that was kind of the other thought process is that Prestige isn't one of those companies with the formula they're looking for. Metal Roofscapes hopefully will be.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think that makes sense. You're kind of keeping your I call it our retirement plan, right? As an entrepreneur, you're open to, all right, yeah, if somebody wants to come in and throw enough zeros at the end of a
Mhm.
check, then becomes my retirement plan. That's something that I can grow, and it sounds like for within your industry, that's just not something that Prestige Roofing um is as easily marketable to them in that way.
Yeah. Prestige is going to need to be sold to somebody who wants to step in and make it their baby and just really, really focus on these customers. I mean, I have a really good relationship with all of my customers, not just business to business, but like with the owners of these property management groups. I have a really good rapport and relationship with them. So Prestige at some point will need to be sold to somebody who wants to do that. Whereas Metal Roofscapes with this metal shop is something that's just a different kind of beast, that hopefully anybody could step in and run it because it's buying leads, selling leads, and also taking really good care of the customer. So I love the high end materials that are hard, and usually those houses, um, I'm helping design the roof a little bit, like, "Hey, this is gonna work better here, this is gonna work better here," because these houses are the engineering is so crazy sometimes, and it's not just like, "Here's the plans," and it's like, "Oh, yeah, we've done a house like this a million times." I love getting a set of plans and I'm like, "Oh, wow, this house is crazy. Let's figure this out." I love doing that kind of thing, so
That's awesome. The question I would have with that is, when you're trying to stand out, when you're trying to, obviously this is something that you charge a little bit more for. What does that sales process look like? How do you differentiate yourself to say, "Hey, look, I am a premium product. I provide a premium service, and so I'm going to charge a premium as a result." Like, what is that? How does your sales process there differentiate versus maybe a standard roofing company or even on the property management side? Because I think everybody wants to be able to charge more, right? And so obviously the end result has to reflect it.
typically, I'm telling my clients that, A, we give a lifetime warranty on our roofs. Nobody else does that. So when we put a roof on, we take on this commitment that this roof is ours for the lifetime of these materials. So we will take care of you until this roof needs to be re-roofed. And some of these products are 100-year products. So I stand behind our workmanship for 100 years. Obviously, I'm not going to be around for 100 years, but um, so the level of quality that we provide to be able to give a lifetime warranty, I say, is going to be better than anybody else's. So the value that we bring with our work is more valuable than what the next guy's going to bring, giving you a 5-year warranty. Um, so it's, and we're usually right in the middle of the pack as far as pricing goes. I'm not like gouging people. Some people see a high end product like Slate and they're just like, okay, we're going to just mark this way up. Usually we're right in the middle of the pack. But even in the middle of the pack, I'm telling people we're going to bring the best value hands down with our lifetime warranty, with the cleanliness that we bring to the job site, with the energy that my company will bring to your project. It's going to be worth hiring us over the next guy.
That's awesome. Yeah. Cause like you said, there are a lot of roofing companies. You've built something a lot bigger and a lot different from that. For people that are interested in, okay, how do I do the same thing? I think that that's really valuable advice. I love standing by the product. I love that, in 100 years, whatever AI version of you lives on beyond,
Yeah,
beyond us, you get
yeah.
to stand by that warranty, which is great. So I wanted to pivot and ask you about like challenges. You've been in business for over or almost 20 years now. What would you say has been the biggest challenge to your business and what did you do to overcome that?
Um, I would say because of our niche, we stay pretty busy despite the economy. Because if an HOA has wind damage, they have to fix it. They have the commitment to the owners in the HOA to fix whatever's going on the roof, right? If they have to re-roof, they have to. Whereas a homeowner's like, I'm just going to put a tarp on this thing and ride out the next 5 years because I can't afford it. And HOA is like, we have to figure this out. So with that niche, it's been nice. I would say I've trusted some people a little more than I should have and gotten pretty burned on getting paid on some pretty big projects. Cash flow at times has been a pretty difficult thing for us because, with a roofing project, if you're doing a $100,000 project, there's 50,000 in materials and, um, 80 or another 30,000 in labor. And I pay that. I've never missed a payroll. I've never not paid for materials. And so I've at the beginning, early on, I went on food stamps myself so that I could pay my guys. And my main crew has been with me for 13 years. So they know that every 2 weeks there's going to be a paycheck. No matter what, I will make it happen. I don't care what I have to do. Um, but cash flow has been a problem at times. The most recent has been this winter because there's a huge project that we've been working on and gotten paid slowly on, and they're having financial issues, which is coming around right now, thank goodness. But for a long time, they were taking a long time to pay, and it's a huge project. So And this winter has been a weird winter because here in Utah, there wasn't a lot of snow. There wasn't a lot of cause for roof damages. Usually during the winter, we're doing repairs all winter long. And this year we just weren't. So there wasn't a lot of revenue coming in, still operational costs, of course. So it was a little dicey, but we rode it through and, used some personal money and sold some stuff and made it work. And now finally this big project, the bank came through. So we're getting checks on that. So our receivables now are coming in, and being springtime now, you were getting tons of projects approved. So now we're back on track, the line of credit's back down, we're all excited again, and that little pinch was a little scary, but now we're back on track. So that's kind of been the main thing sometimes, uh, for me anyways, that has been tough in business.
Yeah. I want to visit when you're first starting your business. You've got your people and you're the owner, you're on food stamp so that your people can, make payroll every time. Cause a lot of times we as the owner, we unfortunately eat last, right? Like we kind of get the leftovers. What did that look like this winter as opposed to, call it 15 years ago when you're first starting your business and starting to pay people and this crew that you've had for 13 years? Did that look any different now versus 15 years ago?
Yeah, I did. I mean, 15 years ago, I was, I would say still new. I had 0 assets to my name. Just me and my wife trying to get by. Like we had to make like $250 a day to live. So, when we were in a cash crunch then, it was hard because we didn't have anything to fall back on, right? Nowadays, I'm like, okay, I could sell the boat. I can sell this. I would say I have more assets I could sell to make it work for longer if I needed to, right? So it's not quite as scary nowadays. It still stinks because there's a lot more at stake nowadays. Um, but I'm the type where it's like if I had to stop everything I'm doing and go work at McDonald's tomorrow, I'll do it. I don't care. Like I'll do whatever it takes to get by and to provide for my family and to make sure my people are getting paid and my materials are getting paid. But it's a little easier now because I've accumulated a little bit of wealth and I have some savings and I have some assets. So when there's a cash crunch now, uh, it's not it hasn't gotten to a point where it's like, okay, I've sold off everything and I have nothing left. And the next thing they're coming from a house. It hasn't gotten down to that point. I've been
Yeah,
pretty smart with the way that I've prepared for a potential situation. And so it doesn't get that bad anymore.
that makes sense. Yeah. I can speak to us personally. We also had a very tight winter. This was our second winter in full-time business, and the first year we saw a little bit of a ding, but for whatever reason this year we were at like 35% of our best
Mm,
month last year.
wow.
Over it after a month in the winter, I was like, whoa, this was a big drop. We lost 65% of our revenue.
Yeah.
We did the same thing. I cut back how much I paid myself pretty significantly, like chopped my salary in half for 2
Mhm.
months. And, I've got kids, I've got a mortgage, I've got, wife, all this stuff, and
Yeah,
life doesn't stop.
that's right.
But you do what you need to do to make those things happen within your own organization.
As a business owner, you do what you have to do. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people miss when they're like, oh, I should start my own business. Or sometimes I've had employees that are like, you know, I do the same amount of work as you do, and you get paid a lot more. I would like more money. And it's like, well, sure, you know, if something really bad happens, you just go find another job. I lose everything. And as a business
The
owner, we
level
take
of
on,
risk is far different.
yeah, the liability. There's a lot of value in the liability of being a business owner. And that's why we can, make all the money. We can pay ourselves in relation to the value that or the liability that we take on, especially as a roofing contractor. There's a lot of liability.
Yeah, because then when the opposite is true, when we have to take the liability and the responsibility for the downtimes, we also have to weather that storm and, fix that financially as well.
Yep. exactly.
I guess the question then is, not only do you have one, big liability, but you've got 4 or 5 with all these different ventures that you take
Yep.
on. So for you, why do you what do you enjoy about owning so many businesses? And, is it tough to kind of keep your brain focused on one thing when you're in it, or do you do a pretty good job of like segmenting your time and your brain energy?
I'm just winging it, man. No, I don't know. I get an idea and I get excited about it. I mean, my wife and I have like 4 ideas in the oven right now of new things. And literally yesterday, we're sitting down and we're talking about these things, and we're like, how are we going to do these things? And we're just like, okay, well, let's start with this one. Let's start with this one, and that all kind of comes together into like the marriage podcast and the coaching, and um, it kind of is all encompassing, right? And all these ideas will come together into this nice bundle of things. But I don't know. I'm kind of ADD with business, and so I get an idea, and usually if it's a good enough idea and I love it enough and I'm excited enough, I'll just go for it and see if it works out. And usually I'm just like, okay, I'll try this. Okay, that worked. Here's the next step. Okay, that worked. Here's the next step. I guess this is working, and then I just keep going. And then if there's something that is a huge roadblock that I can't easily get over, I'll kind of just weigh like, okay, this is going to take a lot of bandwidth to get through this, which I don't have. So maybe this idea, maybe this is where this one just ends. But I tried, you know.
It sounds like kinda did that with the firearms, because you were in the firearms industry for, if I remember right, almost a decade, right?
Um close. Yeah, close. And that was a thing that was just kind of an idea that actually my roofing foreman started making gun holsters, and I was like, those are awesome gun holsters. You should sell them. And he's like, well, you're the businessman. Let's try to make something work. And um we did, and that thing in 3 years grew an insane amount, and then I sold to him and started another firearms industry business, and then another one, and then a couple more, and, that industry was just really fun for a while, so I just tried a bunch of stuff, and then eventually roofing kinda came back into my life, and that started going really well, and it was like, "Okay, I don't." I realized I don't have bandwidth to do all these things well, so I need to pick one, and it just the roofing just felt like the way to go, and looking back, it was, that was kind of a fun chapter, the firearms industry stuff, but now that I'm back in roofing and moving into the coaching and the marriage podcast and those kinds of things, that's kind of like the new side quest chapter, and, it's really fun. It's been great.
Yeah, I love you describing them as side quests. It's like, all right, we've got the through
Yeah,
line is this, property management, roofs and things like that. And all right, what else can we do? How else do I fill the time? The ADD brain a little bit needs something new. So let's do coaching. Let's do this
yeah,
marriage podcast, things like that.
yep,
Well, and I know you work with your wife on this marriage podcast. Tell
mhm.
people a little bit about what's it like to go into business with your spouse. Do you guys have any boundaries that you've set? Like we don't talk business at the dinner table, anything like that?
10 years ago, I would have said never ever go into business with your spouse, ever. Because that's where we were in our relationship. Now, with my spouse, particularly, she's a freaking rock star and she's just my everything. But I would have no problem nowadays going into business with her. We talk about business. I mean, we're just so open with each other nowadays. It's great. But um, I would say that is very dependent on the relationship with your wife, right? Because this again, there was a time in my marriage that I did bring her into some of the firearms industry business stuff, and it was it wasn't great because of the dynamic, and there was because I had another employee that was full time at this particular business, and he would want something one way and she would want something another way, and being my wife, there's that relationship, but he's like my main guy who I'm relying on to like run this business. And so that just didn't work out. And in general, for a long, long time, I would have said to never bring your wife in on a business. Um, Nowadays, I would 100% do it. So again, the answer to that one is just it depends on your relationship with your spouse.
Yeah. So tell people a little bit about why you started your marriage podcast. What was kind of the catalyst for all that?
Okay. So we had one of those marriages for a long, long time that was just call it on the outside it was great, looking in, fantastic. These guys have all the things, the house, the kids, the dog, the yard, your own business. But we were just kind of roommates and um we on the surface we made it look pretty, but inside we both just weren't super happy with the marriage. Like life in general was okay, but we weren't super happy. We weren't necessarily like, you know, knock down, drag out fights all the time. It just wasn't great. So long story short, I mean, I could go on about this for a long time, but we started to work on ourselves kind of individually, and did some great work, had some great progress and growth. When we tried to bring that growth together into the marriage piece, it was messy. We didn't know how to I don't know. We didn't know how to combine these kind of new versions of ourselves into a good marriage, I'll say, because we were now different people. Um, and so it got pretty hard for a little bit. At one point, we sat down and we're like, hey, this just isn't working. We're better people. We are now the kind of people that are healthy enough to be okay on our own, right? Whereas before we weren't. Now we are. So maybe divorce is the right option. Um, because the things we're trying, we're just kind of butting heads and it just wasn't we weren't growing together as much as we were growing individually. And so we sat down and we had this conversation and it was a good conversation. I said, listen, I don't want an answer right now. Let's give this a couple days. Let's think about it and let's come back together and see if we want to make this work. But if we do, it has to be all in. Complete honesty with how we're feeling, what we're thinking, what we need, what we want. Um, just all in on the effort that we're making and the honesty that we're bringing to each other in like what we need out of each other. And so after a few days, and at that point, to be honest, I was thinking like, yeah, this probably just isn't going to work, but let's just give it a couple more days. And in those couple days, I thought, Caitlin's an amazing person. I love her so much. Like I have to give this a shot because I've seen the moments when it was good and it was so good and she's so awesome in those moments. Um, so we came back and sat down and I was like, listen, my answer is I'm in and I'm all in. And I promise you I will be all in if you're willing to. But if you're not willing to be all in, then let's just be done. And she's like, no, I'm with you. Let's do it. Let's go all in. And we were at our lowest there, so there was nothing to lose. So we just brought everything to the table because it was like, if this doesn't work, that's fine. We'll get a divorce and we'll be fine. The kids will be fine. We're healthy people. It will be fine, right? So it was like, we have nothing to lose. Let's just put it all on the table. And we did. And immediately things started to get better. Um, and there have been ups and downs, of course, but being completely honest with feelings and thoughts, respectfully. Obviously, it's, not going to be an asshole and, you know, say all the things if it's something that doesn't need to be said, right? But um, that's just where we went with it. And slowly things got better. And we built this new level of trust because now it's like, I trust that what you're telling me is authentic. And so I'm going to just take this as information instead of a way to get offended or defensive. And B, I trust that me bringing something to you, you're going to also take it as just me being honest with you and authentic with you. And you're going to take that as a learning, something to learn from. And so what it came down to is we went from um, kind of a place of ego in dealing with each other to a place of we're just learning about each other. And that's kind of what we teach is that all the interactions with your spouse, you're just learning about your spouse. I love learning new things about my spouse every day. And so when she brings something to me, a concern, or if she's annoyed or whatever, I'm like, oh, okay. Um, So I'm either learning about myself because I know she's being honest, or I'm learning about her if she's voicing a concern about just something in life. I'm learning about her, and I don't necessarily need to fix it. I can just learn about her and be there for her, and maybe provide some advice or thoughts. But mostly, I'm just learning about her, and it's amazing. And that's what kind of got us onto this path where today, if you had asked me 10 years ago if a relationship like what we have today exists, I would have said, absolutely not in my wildest dreams does that exist. But today it does. And so we, we have a lot of friends that are either getting divorced or their relationships aren't great. And we just want people to know that this is possible. An amazing, incredible, insanely incredible marriage is possible. And and so in our podcast, we talk about the things that we've gone through and the things that we've learned that we wish we would have known 10 years ago to hopefully help people that this resonates with adjust the way that they do things, and really less the way that you do things, more the way that you think about things and the way that you deliver things and the way that you receive things, because that's the key really to having a better relationship is all that underlying dynamic of the way that the information is being transferred and processed.
I love that. Yeah, and I like what you said about, like, taking your ego out of it a little bit, because I think that, within your marriage, a lot of times there was this miscommunication and now we're mad at each other, and eventually you have to get to that point of, like, all right, like, one of us is gonna apologize for this, and who's it gonna be? And then it becomes a contest of, well, I don't wanna be the first one to apologize, and now we're just mad for no reason instead of, hey, this could have been squashed, 2 minutes after it started, but now it's a bigger thing because of ego.
Yeah. And so often when we're arguing, it's almost like we're we're thinking the same things, we're just speaking a different language, right? Because we're seeing this thing from the lens of our own experiences, which are different experiences and different feelings and whatever. So we're saying the same things through a different lens, but because that lens is different enough, it's hard to receive or say it in the way that they need to receive it. And but at the end of the day, I can't tell you how many times I'm like, "Babe, holy cow. Like, we want the same thing here. Like, we want the same result. Like, let's go 6 steps ahead. We want the same thing. We're just thinking about, like, different ways to get there based on how we feel about it that's a little bit different." So yeah, so often we're saying the same thing, just speaking a different language, and it doesn't need to get to where it gets sometimes.
Have you found that translate into your business side at all? Have you, learned how to remove your ego from that, or found, skills in listening in your marriage that worked for the sales side? Have you found that those things translate? And if so, how?
I would say they do translate, but I would say I was much better at business relationships well before I was good at the marriage relationship. I was great in my business relationships. Yeah, well before things got a lot better in the marriage. So it definitely transfers, and it definitely uh, is relatable on both sides. But the marriage side is harder because there's more ego there. There's more to lose there. But generally in business, I want everybody to win. So if another roofer comes to me and says, "How did you do it?" I will tell them every step that I took to do this because I want everybody to win. And when I don't get a job, I honestly am just excited for the guy that did get the job because it's like, man, he got an awesome job. I'll get the next one. If I didn't get it, it's because I wasn't supposed to get it. Um, and and that's taking the ego out of it because it's just everybody's going to win at the end of the day if they're doing things right. There's enough work for everybody. If you're doing it right and if you're honest and if you're working with integrity, you're going to be successful and there's going to be enough work for everybody.
Me and my local network, we call that co-opetition.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
cooperate, we
yeah.
compete a little bit. Like,
Mhm.
there's just that mix. Like, business is always going to be a little bit competitive, but you can also cooperate. Maybe there's a job that is high end, and somebody's like, oh, I don't know how to do that. That's not really my thing, but I know Tyler does. And
And
same
that
thing.
happens all the time. I have people calling me all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's worth it to be friends with your competitors for that reason, because
100%.
what's good for your business is not going to be the same as what's good for them. There's going to be overlap, obviously. And like you said, sometimes you'll win, sometimes you'll lose against them, but there's also going to be more opportunities to say, "Hey, this isn't a great one for me, but I know the person that you need to talk to."
Yeah, and I have homeowners that ask me, 'cause there's a lot of shady roofing companies out there. So, and if I, I'll sometimes mention that in the right context with the homeowner. Um, and I've had plenty of homeowners asking me like, "Okay, well, who's not shady?" And I'll say, "Okay, here's 3 companies that will be competitively priced that I know are reliable, they'll do good work for you. Go get bids from them as well as me, because I know that if I lose to them, I still feel good that you about what you're gonna get." And, you know, and that happens both ways as well. I have other roofing companies refer people to me when they need more bids as well. So, definitely good to keep your competition, uh, friendly.
Yeah, I love that. One of the questions I like to ask Tyler, and I'm curious, especially for you with how many, how many different fingers you have in all the pies. What does business look like for you in 5 years? Let's say, you rub the lamp,
Mm.
the genie comes out, you get exactly what you want. What does
Oh,
success
man.
look like over the next 5 years for you?
I will say every 5 years of the last 20 has looked completely different than I expected, right? So, it's so hard to say, but if I had to pick, I would say, I wanna build my coaching business. Um, 5 years, I'm still gonna be in the roofing. 10 years, hopefully not, but, I wanna grow the coaching business, the podcast, and this whole conglomerate of things that we're working on, we really feel like is gonna be big because we know how many people need it, and B, we're getting some really, really good feedback on the things that we're doing. So, that side of things, I feel like is gonna grow, as well as the roofing, but probably with, I won't say there would be more focus on those other things, but the focus on those things might grow more than the focus on the roofing will grow, if that makes sense. Um,
Yeah, it sounds like the roofing is kind of organically growing itself. It has enough momentum. You're just letting the
yeah.
ball roll down the hill.
Yeah, and we are right now trying to grow the roofing a decent amount, but with the team I have in place, it's been pretty steady and pretty nice because I have just awesome, awesome people working for me. And so it's not that it's gonna be no work, but that's gonna be a lot of that's gonna be handled by my team. Whereas the other stuff's gonna be me and my wife just diving in, getting dirty, and doing that stuff ourselves. Because I know roofing, this other stuff, we don't know nearly as much, right? We're just a couple people with a freaking awesome marriage that just want more people to have a good marriage. We don't know how to do a podcast. We don't know how to do social media that good. Like, we're just like we're really actually winging it on that stuff for now. So that's gonna take a lot more effort to figure out over the roofing that I kind of already have figured out. We're just gonna kinda implement the things that we're working on.
Yeah. Well, I think you guys will be successful. I think that you guys are both driven. You guys want what's best for your audience. You're doing it for the right reason. So I think that it won't be without challenges, but you guys are on the right track for sure.
Definitely, and my wife's a rock star. She handles all the podcast stuff on the back end. She just finished writing a book, and she's teaching yoga and some other things. So she's got so much of that stuff handled. I could say she's one of my team members, kind of like my other people, but she just handles so much. I'm so grateful to have her.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, so tell people a little bit about this coaching program that you're putting together. Who's the coaching for? What does it look like? Um,
So, basically, the ideal person would be somebody who was like myself, who was a, very insecure, codependent person that showed up in their marriage with kind of the scarcity mindset. Um, I the first I would say at least 10 years on my marriage, the way that I showed up was so that we wouldn't get divorced. I was so scared of divorce that that was how I showed up in my marriage. I'm gonna do these things so that we don't get divorced. It wasn't, "I'm gonna do these things so I love you and because I love you and so that we have an awesome marriage," which the things might be the same with both of those mindsets, but the mindset makes the energy completely different. The way that you do those things comes off completely different, and so, um my ideal client would be somebody who maybe lives in this scarcity mindset, who's insecure, maybe codependent, and wants to become more confident, more masculine, the kind of guy that is going to naturally attract their wife back to them. Um, and by rebuilding themselves, uh, will transform the marriage because that's how you do it. You don't fix the marriage by doing different things. You fix the marriage by fixing yourself, and then the marriage kind of follows.
Yeah, I think that part's very important for sure. You and your wife, you were growing into better people,
Mhm.
but doing it individually. And so
Yeah.
now you've changed that focus to, okay, we're going to grow together into better people.
Yeah, and I will say that's how we had to do it. It had to come it had to be that way. We had to individually grow so that we could now take these new people and have a healthier marriage because it took the new people to have the marriage that we do now. And we've grown like 100 different levels since then in the last, you know, 3 or 5 years. But it definitely takes getting out of the place of scarcity and codependence and insecurity to be able to even be in a place where your marriage can thrive.
Yeah. It sounds like these new people you became had to fall back in love.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I love that. Yep.
The last question I wanted to ask you, Ty, is just about, um, on the business side. You've been in business for 20 years. You did it with your dad. You watched him grow a business. You've, done a lot with it since then, obviously. But what's the best piece of business advice that maybe you've either read,
Mm,
heard in a podcast, or were given? And how did implementing it change you or your business?
okay. I'm gonna say 2 things, that are kinda go together. One, um, work your butt off until you're in a place to hire somebody to take over some of the things for you. And when that happens, don't be afraid to release control of some of the things that A, you don't have time to do, or B, somebody else can do better than you. And it's going to take a leap because you're going to have to now all of a sudden put out another salary. But by doing that, it's going to give you time and bandwidth to work on the business instead of just in the business. That's a huge thing. The second thing I would say is my team of people that deal with my money is absolutely incredible. I've got a banker who's incredible. I have a friend who's also my kind of part-time CFO who's insane, and I have a CPA who's amazing. And they all work together, not just me to each of them individually. I have them all on a team as well. And having that in place, um, especially in the last 5 years when prestige has been growing a bunch, has been absolutely necessary to be successful. You know, to buy the sheet metal company, which at the same time I bought a commercial building down the road, um, and, equipment, anything you need, anything I need financially, I just pick up the phone and I call 2 people. And I'm like, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think?" And they're like, "Yeah, that's great. Your financials are looking good that right now. Last year we made plenty of money. You've got this and this and this in savings. You got this and this and this here. Yeah, you're good. Let's do it." And um, if it's a loan or if it's something at the bank, my banker literally just sends me the application completely filled out. He's like, "Here's the things you need to look at to make sure you like what this is basically saying, and then sign the bottom." and it just works and it just happens. So having a financial team is huge. Even start with one of those, like get a good relationship with a banker. If you're in Utah and you need one, I've got one. Who's the best. But that's easy. Just go to your bank and don't just work with the tellers. Find the loan guy back there, the main guy, and just kind of build that relationship and say, "Hey, this is my business. Eventually, I'm gonna want to build it. So let me take you to lunch and let's talk about banking. Let's talk about what you think about my business and what you think about my stuff." And usually, bankers sometimes have the most boring jobs, so they're gonna love going out to lunch with you and having you explain your business so that they can help you, you know, maybe in the future, but help you to grow that. And that's free.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, and, along with that, I talked to somebody else, Tim Brown on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he said something along those lines also, but he said, like, "If you have a killer month, go to your banker, go to the person you trust and say, 'Hey, I wanna set up a line of credit.'"
Mhm.
Like, it's so much easier to do it when your business is going up versus when it's going down and you're like, "Oh, I might need some cash." If you have that line of credit already there and established, like, do that whether you're planning on using it or not, because maybe someday you might need to make payroll and you're like, "Oh man, short, but now I have this line of credit that's gonna help get us through that tough time."
100%. I've got a large line of credit at my bank, and we used almost every penny of it this winter. And again, there's this really big job that owes us a lot of money. Um, that it's gonna take to actually pay off the line of credit, which now they are, but we charge them interest, and I just trusted that it was gonna work out, and it is, and so now it's almost paid off. They're paying us incrementally, but, without that, I don't know what I would have done, honestly. It would have been very difficult, so having a line of credit is important. Even if you don't use it, it's there to fall back on, and can be used if you use it right and smart as a huge business tool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tyler, this has been really, really awesome. Thanks so much for chatting with me. Where do you want people to try to find you? Do you want them to follow the Level Live podcast?
So Level Live Podcast is on Spotify. You could find us on social media on Instagram. I want to say it's just at Level Live Podcast. Coaching, I really soon will be tylerely.com. Um, I'm almost done with that website, and it's gonna have, like, everything that I do. It's gonna have the podcast and the roofing and the coaching on there. So if you're listening to this, maybe this will be my kick in the butt to get that thing live because it's so close. So that would be tylerely.com. You can go check out the coaching. Check out really everything I do will be on there. And that's where you can find me, but also on social media. And the roofing company is prestigepros.com. Um, and if you have any questions about anything, just reach out. And I'm an open book. I'm not shy.
Well, and I appreciate that, Tyler. I think that you've been very giving today. You've shared a lot of knowledge about a lot of different topics. So thank you so much. Any last minute things that you want to plug or chat about?
I'll say, like, do work hard and don't be dumb with your money, but also play with your money because you only have so many years, right? And I feel like so many people go through life with the attitude of like, I'm working for retirement. I'm saving for retirement. And that's all they do, right? So that when they're 65, now they can not have to work, but now your body is a 65-year-old body and you can't do all the things that you would have wanted to do before. So that's why I race cars, because when I'm 65, I probably won't want to race cars anymore. And so I'm doing it now because I've always wanted to race cars. So why not? And I if I needed to stop for financial reasons, I would, but I don't have to. And so I'm going to race cars. And um so I would say just, live your life, be smart, but don't sacrifice the things you've always wanted to do in the name of just having a little bit more money when you're old and wrinkly.
I love that. I've learned to change my relationship with money because I grew up very much a saver.
Mhm.
My parents were both, middle class. A teacher and a social worker were my parents. So it was like, hey, we save money. I've been good at saving for my whole life. And in the last, 2 or 3 years, I've come to realize, I'd much rather have experiences than things is one thing I've learned. But two
Mhm.
is like money is just as much an energy as it is a number. And
100%. It comes and
and
goes.
it's yep.
Yep. You could lose it all tomorrow like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So I read something that stuck with me a while back, and I'll end on this. Memories are the currency of life.
I love that. You can't put a better note on the end of this podcast.
Yeah,
But Tyler, thank you so much, and thank you so much for watching. This has been another episode of Winging It. Hopefully, if you've watched it this far, you feel like you're winging it just a little bit less. We'll talk to you next week. I'll be here with another business owner. We'll talk to you
all
then.
right. See ya.